Okay, second graders, the materials you need today for today's writing lesson are your yellow writing folder. And then you should also have your pre-assessment, which should actually be in your yellow writing folder. So let's look at our list of tasks. Yesterday, we did the lesson, What are personal narratives? Today, we're going to write 3 goals. The objective for today is, I can identify goals to make me a better writer. Okay, yesterday, you came up with a bunch of ideas of what personal narratives are. So in the past with students, we've taken all the ideas that students come up with, and I bet you have a lot more than me, and then we've actually made them into a checklist together. So this is our personal narrative checklist. So I used sensory details. These are all things that personal narratives have. I included dialogue and inner thoughts. So you can notice that I actually put that on my list that I noticed. My story has a strong beginning. My story has a strong ending. I showed character feelings using actions or dialogue and inner thoughts. I put a period, exclamation point, or question mark at the end of every sentence. I put quotation marks around dialogue. I used correct capitalization at the beginning of every sentence, for titles of movies and books, for specific names of people or animals. So my cat's name is Genevieve, so I would capitalize Genevieve, but not the word cat. And for the specific names of places. And then also I indented paragraphs on my final draft. And that means, I'll show you an example of indenting. Here when the writer puts the line in a little bit like this. But I did have something missing on here. Good personal narratives should also have neat handwriting. So I'm going to write on here, at the bottom, I'd like you to all add this. I used neat handwriting. Okay. Now I'm going to look at my personal narrative pre-assessment, and I'm going to notice what did I do well from this list and what am I missing? So here's mine. I was at Disneyland with my mom. I was 8 years old. We were sitting in a boat on the ride Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm scared, I whimpered. It's not that scary, my mom replied. But what about the drop over the waterfall, I whispered. Oh, so I'm already noticing that I definitely use dialogue here, because dialogue is when people are talking. So I'm going to use a pencil so that I could erase this later if I need to. And I'm going to put a check mark next to I included dialogue and or inner thoughts. It's not very steep, my mom said in a comforting voice. The boat ahead of our boat went down the drop. It will be over soon, I thought to myself. As the boat crept closer to the drop, I felt my heart beating faster. Suddenly, we went down the drop. I took a deep breath. I beamed. I did it, I exclaimed. That wasn't so bad, was it? My mom replied. A few minutes later, we got off the ride and started to walk around Disneyland. I watched as people shot down the steep water slide on Splash Mountain. Are you ready to try it? My mom asked. So now I need to look at this list and think about what did I do well and what am I missing? Okay. I used sensory details. So you might remember from first grade that sensory details are things that you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And so when I looked at my story, I don't think I did a really good job using sensory details. For example, when I started describing the ride Pirates of the Caribbean, I didn't really describe anything that I was seeing around me or hearing. I really didn't describe my environment very much. I could have gone into a lot more details. So I'm just going to put a little circle here because I feel like I need to work on using sensory details. My story has a strong beginning. Well, I think my story has a strong beginning. I described to my reader what's happening and I made it very clear. I think I hooked them into the story, so I'm going to say that I did a good job having a strong beginning. My story has a strong ending. Let's see. A few minutes later, we got off the ride and started to walk around Disneyland. I watched as people shot down the steep water slide on Splash Mountain. "Are you ready to try it?" my mom asked. "Not yet," I replied with a grin, "but someday I will be." So I think I have a strong ending that ties my story together. I showed character feelings using actions or dialogue and inner thoughts. I definitely think that I did that because in one part here I said that I felt my heart beating faster, which shows that I'm scared. And in this part where I said I'm scared, I whimpered, that definitely shows I'm scared. So I think I showed character feelings. I put a period, exclamation point, or question mark at the end of every sentence. Well, sometimes I did, like period here and here, 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 here. But oh no, I'm missing a period here. I see that I'm missing one down here too. So that's something I need to work on. I put quotation marks around dialogue. Oh wow, I didn't do that at all. I used correct capitalization. Well, I also didn't use any capital letters. I need to work on that. I indented paragraphs on my final draft. Well, I did actually indent paragraphs. So I can see that I indented paragraphs. And I think my writing was neat. I have 4 things on here. I use sensory details. I put a period, exclamation point, or question mark at the end of every sentence. I put quotation marks around dialogue. I used correct capitalization. I'm only supposed to choose 3 writing goals. So I'm going to choose the 3 I need to work on the most. I really think I need to work on using sensory details. And I put periods at the end of some sentences and not others, so I'm not going to choose that because it's kind of mixed between doing it and not doing it. I didn't use any quotation marks, so I really need to work on that. And I never capitalized, so I really need to work on that. So I'm choosing these 3. 1, 2, 3. So now I'm going to write my writing goals here. My first writing goal is I'm going to think I will, so my writing goal should start with I will use sensory details in my writing. So I really need to work on using sensory details. I'm really going to think about that when I start my next story. My next writing goal. So I didn't do a good job putting quotation marks around dialogue, so I'm going to say I will. So our goal should start with the 2 words I will. I will put quotation marks around dialogue. And now I need a third writing goal. And I need to work on using capitalization. So I'm going to write down, I will, and I'm going to think about, it's really a lot to remember to capitalize all these different times. So since I'm really not doing it at all, right now I'm just going to focus on putting a capital letter at the beginning of every sentence. That's my first goal. So I'm going to put, I will use a capital letter at the beginning of every sentence. Now that I've written down my writing goals, I'm actually going to erase my marks here because I would really like to be able to use this checklist later for my writing without getting confused. So second graders, I want you to take out your pre-assessment and then I want you to read it, look at the personal narrative checklist and think about what are you doing really well and what do you need to work on? And the 3 main things you need to work on are your 3 writing goals, which you'll write down here. Okay, have a great day.